Hello and welcome back to The Rabbit Descends Down the Hole. In this week's episode, we're going to take it a step farther from where we were with Jacob and telling the story around the campfire of what happened with him and his father. I call this what Rebekah saw. Let's dig into her just a little bit. She's a very interesting character. So the morning after, Isaac told his story, and Esau, he woke up with a clear mind, and the story really didn't bother him. He actually felt more assured of God after that. He kept thinking of the way that God spoke to his grandfather and his dad, and the way they spoke to God back, and he felt like this comfort about the whole thing, and he liked it. It made sense to him. Jacob, on the other hand, he'd been awake most of the night. He didn't get a good night's sleep. He was quite confounded by the whole thing. Which I do understand. You're thinking, you're pondering, you're like, why didn't me God wanted me to sacrifice? That whole thing, So, I kind of get it. Esau looked over at him, How can you be at peace with this? And Esau was like, well, how can you not be? It's all about that trust. That's what they had. Anyway, Rebekkah, she hears this conversation with them, and she heard what she already knew. Isaac already told her about it, but, she kind of was in the background with the whole thing. She stepped out of the tent, and she just was observing at first. She saw how Esau was relaxed and calm, and how Jacob was just so tensed up, and she went over to Jacob and, what's on your mind, son? Oh, Mom, I have so many questions. I'm just so bothered by this conversation. He really wasn't eating his breakfast, and, Rebekah saw that, he had trouble. I'm having a hard time with this test, Well, you have to understand that it wasn't necessarily a test, per se. It was God wanting them to honor him with a sacrifice and create an altar and create this bond. Right? Because remember, they did that covenant. Remember Abraham, your grandfather, and God, face to face, they did that covenant? Which meant, I do my part, you do your part, and everything will work. You remember that? That was a big part of why this was such a big thing. And they knew that God was going to provide. He was just going to do what God told him to do. As ridiculous as it sounded, as ridiculous as it was to hold that knife up, as ridiculous as this whole thing was, he knew, in his heart of hearts, they were going to come back down that mountain, and they were going to have a sacrifice. They were going to have a barbecue, basically. They were going to have a barbecue dinner with God. They knew that. And Rebekah's wisdom, she had wisdom with that. And Jacob understood that. Those two were really close. There was more closeness there than there was with Esau. Esau he was out most of the day. He was a hunter family. He was really the provider. If you kind of look at it. Not that Isaac didn't do stuff, but, Esau was really good at this. He was a good kid, So, that evening, and Jacob does get a bit of comfort out of this from listening to his mom. He really does. Esau, he comes back, he's got dinner for everybody. He's, woo, I did it. And, well, I'm looking for the words right here to explain this. There was this, that tension that was there seemed to have released itself some, you know. But another tension kind of formed because now Jacob was like, well, why is Esau so, you know? There was always this animosity with his brother, and he kind of saw within himself. I mean, he had some issues. He really did. He had some real self-esteem issues, some real confidence issues, and he needed more guidance. Where Esau, he really needed more like protection just because of what he did. You know, if you think about it, I mean, he's out there hunting these animals, and isn't, you know, there's no guns or anything. I mean, this is like one-on-one combat. I mean, if you think about it, you know, it's pretty intense. You know, I mean, you know, they have bow and arrows and things of that nature, and you know, the sling that David used. I'm sure, you know, there was a form of that, you know, but it was basically, you know, today we have guns. Back then they had rocks. They do the same damage, you know, in the essence that it will kill your prey, you know. Just the way they do it is different, you know. So, and Isaac, you know, he told his story. He said his piece, and him and Esau, they, all right, it is what it is, you know. Jacob not so much, but it was Rebekah that really helped Jacob kind of see that. But like I said, the tension grew in other ways, and we will see what happens with that tension in the stories to come. I'll see you in the next one.